Hello, and welcome to the Old Man Orange Podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Dunnigan.
And we are coming at you with a Mario March here, trying to get kind of back in business. You know, doing it a little bit earlier because we've done Mario May before, but you know what? Since we got that Mario movie coming out in April, we thought, hey, you know what we got to do? We got to get some Mario things going out, whether it be Mario movie-related, game, comic. There's all kinds of fun stuff out there. And, you know, to top it all off, Nintendo just did that thing where they're like, well, guess what? I know you got, you know, all this free time on your hands, so here's a bunch of games all at once, and then open up your wallet at the same time. We're going to give you Game Boy games, Game Boy Advance games. Here's a Metroid game. Guess what? That Advance Wars thing? Fuck Russia. Well, you know what? Here you go. Here's the game, too. Get that cash out. You thought you were saving money? Think again. Nintendo.
It's just Mario showing up with a wallet, like showing up with a mallet, like, get your fucking wallets out. You know what we're here for, you know, like he's just shaking you down.
Yeah, it's just that one where, like, in my mind, I was going, okay, cool. Like, realistically, don't have to spend any money till Resident Evil 4 remake comes out. You know, justify that. And then it's like, all of a sudden, it's like, oh, Metroid Prime remake. You know what I mean? Like, how many versions can I have of that game? Never enough, I guess. So let's just buy it again. And then, of course, that game gets delayed, like, multiple times because I bought the physical version. So it's just one of those things where it's just like, oh, okay, don't worry, I'll wait on it. But in that process, they put Mario Land 2 in the Game Boy section, which they actually have a pretty good, like, that's a lot of games they dropped at once for there, because most of they only give you like 2 or 3 games, you know, once, you know, well, literally once in a blue moon, because there's no rhyme or reason how those games come out. They're not like, you remember back on the Wii when they had the virtual console, and every week you got, I think, 2 or 3 games. So like it gave you something to look forward to, like let's just say every Tuesday. I can't remember what day it was, but you know what I mean? You could always just see what there is. And now it's like one of those ones where it's just like, yeah, it's just like, well, whenever we feel like it, we'll just drop something on you. And sometimes they end up just dropping a lot at once.
Yeah, and it's also one of those things where they kind of like, how do I put it? Like, there are some games where I totally get why that's on there, and there's some like sort of like deeper cut games where it's like, oh right, that one. I mean, it's not as well known as like Mario Land or whatever, but I get why that's on there. Then you get like Alone in the Dark for Game Boy Color. I'm like, maybe that was a big game and I don't remember, but I'm like, you're putting. I mean, we're doing Mario Land 2, which is a game I'm really glad that's on there.
Yeah,
but I'm surprised we're jumping to Mario Land 2 and Alone in the Dark and Gargoyle before Mario Land. You know, just throwing that out there.
Well, the Alone in the Dark one's the one that's so weird. Like I'll say, because that game's one of those ones that, like, when that game came out, it was one of those ones like, holy shit, look what they can do on a Game Boy Color screen. Like that's like its biggest thing is it's like it's kind of impressive for like that. But beyond that, it's one of those kind of games, like, let's be honest, if you're going to play the new Nightmare, you're going to pick it up either on Dreamcast or Steam or PlayStation or what have you. The only thing I can think about it is that, you know, whoever owns the licensing to Alone in the Dark or whatever, they're like, whoa, we got a new Alone in the Dark coming out. Nintendo, you got to put our game on there. You got to get brand awareness going for us. You sure it's the right way? Maybe you should just put it on the, you know, if PlayStation 5's doing, like, you could put Alone in the Dark New Nightmare on the PlayStation version. No. Game Boy Color version. That's what the fans want.
All right. If you say so, maybe it's kind of like maybe it's like Metal Gear Solid. How it's got like a kind of like a fan, like a big fan following the Metal Gear Solid for like Game Boy Color or whatever.
Well, the Game Boy Color Metal Gear Solid is super good though. That's the thing, is that game is a legitimate game in itself, and it's like it does like there's some things that are in that game that don't even appear until like Metal Gear Solid 3 and a farther along.
Mm-hmm. Well, I never played Alone in the Dark, so it's just one of those things where I couldn't really say what they. Well, I get why they put that one on there. It just that was a little bit of kind of like, you know, every so often you'll see like someone make fun of a Nintendo Direct, and just like, okay, we got 3 Ninjas Strike Back and the Bean Boys, you know. So it's just kind of like random ass things, you know. So that's what that one kind of seemed like, but they still had enough on there to make it worthwhile, and hopefully they're a little bit more frequent with bringing new games out.
Yeah, exactly.
If Pokemon comes up, it's probably near the end of it, more than likely. But for how many games they got to put on to not the virtual console, but to like their Nintendo Online, I'm assuming this is either going to carry on to the next console, or the Switch has like at least maybe 3 or 4 more years left.
Well, see, I don't believe the Switch has very much more time left because the new Zelda's coming out on it, and that's almost like a telltale sign that that's the end of a Nintendo life cycle, is when the second Zelda kind of comes out for it.
I would assume so, unless maybe everything from like Nintendo Online is being carried over to whatever the next system is. So that's a very good possibility about that too. But you know, 'cause we haven't heard anything. Maybe they've been hush hush about everything. But yeah, so like you said, we're doing, instead of Mario May, it's Mario March, just because we want to line it up where Mario March ends. That's where the new movie comes out in early April. So as we've done Mario May 1 year, and then we've kind of like got like a little couple of Mario things in May. Like the other years, it's just like, oh shit, it's May. We didn't plan this out. This year we're kind of going with the plan. So we figured one of the things we always like to do in Mario March is, of course, get there's some stuff people recognize, but we like to focus on maybe things that aren't immediately thought of when people talk about Mario Brothers.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I will say, though, is Mario Land 2, I know that game's kind of been sort of slightly forgotten as time has gone on. It felt like back in the 90s, though, this game was just as big as anything else. Because when I think of kind of like the pre-Pokemon era of Game Boy, like some of the biggest games in my mind that I could always remember is Mario Land 2 and Zelda Link's Awakening. Those are like those ones that stick out to me so much back then, you know, that I thought was just pure amazing. Always, it blew my mind, you know. And I just think maybe it's just one of those ones with, you know, obviously if you're a younger person, you didn't grow up in the Game Boy era, like it's kind of one of those sections of gaming that's like, I kind of hate to sort of say it, but unless you got nostalgia for Game Boy, it's kind of a weird one to go back to, you know, or unless you want to be historical or be retro or any of that kind of stuff, because it is one of those ones. They are almost like, so a lot of the games almost have that like almost like pre-NES kind of feel to them, like almost like it's sort of like playing Atari 2600 or any of those kind of systems. I mean, a little bit more than that, but you know what I mean.
It can kind of feel like that depending on the game. There are some games, because really at the end of the day, a lot of I think one of the reasons why Tetris was the one that came bundled with it instead of Mario Land, because you think Nintendo, Mario Land, but I think the reason is Tetris is the perfect game to play on the go, because gaming on the go was the whole idea. And I think that's the thing about a lot of like older handheld games that just felt kind of like the lesser version of like, you know, this particular franchise. I mean, there's some things that made their bread and butter on handheld, of course, but a lot of them just felt kind of like, okay, you can get like, I don't know, I'm just gonna make the weirdest example here, but like, granted, also not the biggest or greatest game, but like you can get Bugs Life for PlayStation or Nintendo 64, or you can get it for Game Boy Color. Like, well, it's not a hard choice there, you know, because it would just be like this weird kind of like, you know, what is it? Oh, it's a side scroller. What a shocker. And it's also kind of like that weird, like, you know, like trying to look 3D, but it's not really, you know. And I know it's just the weirdest one I pulled out of my ass. I don't know why I landed on a Bug's Life. But anyway, the thing is, do you get a lot of those where there was this, like, it was almost just kind of like, hey, you know, it's out there for if you want it. And I was used to seeing a lot of those kind of games, like another thing to date us, in a glass case at a Funko Land for like $10. And the concept of buying a video game for $10, it was like, even like, you know, Star Wars, like Super Return of the Jedi, not as good as the Super Nintendo version, but hey, you had a more portable version you could take with you. So Mario Land, even though I like that one, and it still was a little different, like, oh, Mario's in a submarine or airplane on this level, it was ultimately just still kind of like Mario on the go, a more easier Mario Land. But I think Mario Land 2 is one where, yeah, it's easier than your average Mario game, but they were trying things really different for Mario.
And 2, I mean, it's even kind of like Mario Land as well, that like never appears in anything else, you know, Nintendo from this point on in the Mario series.
Yeah, like a lot of the worlds, like if you look at a lot of the worlds, a lot of them look kind of like it feels like a Mario game, it plays like a Mario game, but a lot of the stuff in it, like it doesn't really look like a Mario game. Like it almost kind of like the worlds they go to don't really seem to have as much of a Mario vibe. Like you could probably put like a Mario, you could like attribute a Mario vibe to it. Like you could say Mario goes inside the belly of like a whale or something, or Mario is small but he's in a big world, like, or he's in a world that's mostly a tree. You could like attribute things that you can get like a Mario vision, but this almost seems kind of like Mario plopped into a very different kind of setting, you know?
Well, it's definitely that one that you can see. It's somebody else going like, "Hey, this is what I think Mario should have in it. I want to put all my own kind of characters on. We'll throw some Koopa Troopas and some Goombas in there, but I got all kinds of ideas that I want to put like, and that's sort of how it feels. And sometimes I always picture that Shigeru Miyamoto does that thing where like, that's cute of you. You think you can add to it? That's just a Game Boy game. Let the adults do the real Mario now." You know, that's sometimes how it feels, because like a lot of times when there's these kind of, like, I guess you would say, sort of side games, like none of that stuff ever seems to appear later down the line.
Yeah. Well, it's also something that's interesting about it is like, so first off, we'll just say this. The game is very easy. It is a very easy game to play and beat. However, the thing that's almost kind of interesting, the thing that is interesting about it is, yeah, sure, there's some Mario games where you can go and beat like this level before that level. Before, like, you know, Mario 64. But this one, you can go to any world before and pick wherever you wanted to start. You know, you could start off in the haunted house world. You could start off in the water world inside the turtle. You can go whatever order you wanted, and that was very different for a Mario game. And plus, where Mario Land was trying to just be kind of like Super Mario Brothers again, but it has kind of slightly of a desert theme, sort of. This one is more of like, oh, let's try and make a Mario World, more like Mario World, simplified, but in the simplification, we're going to give a different aesthetic that most Mario games don't have.
I love the story because it's one of those ones, like this game that introduces Wario, which is the biggest one. But I love it's like, you know, after Mario's kind of crusades, you know, he just got himself an island and a castle that he won. He's like, yeah, that's right, princess. You know, us blue collar guys need a place to hang out, to lay our schlong on the lines. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, it's like there's this guy from fucking back in grade school, fucking douche, Wario. Oh my god, he shows up and he's on his knees, kind of going like, Mario, everything's gone wrong, you know. I got into drugs, everything's bad, you know. Just let me live here in the castle, you know. He's like, I'm like, yeah, what a nice fucking guy I am. I'm like, sure, come on over. And next thing you know, he puts a fucking spell on me, kicks me out of the castle, makes everybody hate me in this land that I'm supposed to be dictator of. And now I got to get those coins and go up there and kick his ass.
The proletariat's a fucking idiot, Luigi. Don't let them tell you anything different. They need the iron fist to put them down. They need to be reminded.
I just love because it's like when you look at Wario nowadays like, oh, I'm the anti-hero, you know. And I say, you know, I mean, he's just the guy. He's like the Lobo of like Nintendo and so on like that. But in this one here, he's just like a fucking little bitch that just can't like make his own fucking living and has to steal from other people and so on. And it's just so funny because it's like the way that he is in this one, it's just like, oh, he's just that fucking loser that nobody fucking liked in school, and Mario just puts pity on him and then realizes, oh yeah, there's a reason why you don't do pity. Luigi, keep that in mind. You know what I mean? Sometimes you gotta keep those ones under your thumb.
You know, you never make friends with the weak kids. You keep your foot on the fucking throat so they know the place. Because if they suddenly get the courage, they think if you trust them, they'll go for your neck when you ain't fucking looking. You know, the cowards, they have their ways. But we have ours. And that way is a fucking hammer to the fucking shin if they try any shit.
Exactly.
You're going to try any shit, Luigi? Like, this is a Christmas dinner.
He's just like, we got a fucking tennis match tomorrow, and there's one of those douchebags coming back again. Why, Luigi? And you're going to put up with him? No, you're going to show him who's the fucking Mario Brothers are. You know what I mean?
Oh my God, Mario would probably be the worst if they like, you know, whenever who's ever teamed up with Mario, like in Mario Double Dash, or like Mario, like Mario Tennis or whatever, or if they're in pairs in golf, like, fuck, what do you got paired with Mario? Like, what's the thing? His name's on the title, so he's extra like intense, like. All the smiling like that, that's for the camera. The second the camera cuts away, like it's like almost like it's like the episode of Dennis and It's Always Sunny. When he's alone, his face just goes numb. He just looks soulless. He looks stern. He just like stares at people, not smiling. He's not frowning either, but he's just staring. You see his fists like just clenching.
So I just picture like Double Dash. He's driving along. He's like, if you don't punch that guy coming up next to us, so help me God, I'm gonna pick you up and throw you off like a blue shell. Mario doesn't lose.
And he's just like, just good going, Luigi. Like, well, now I'm sure I shouldn't say good going. Like, well, what do you mean? Like, we won that race. Like, we won the race. I know you went through that red shell because you're friends with them, but like, well, we still won. Yeah, well, hard to win when your brakes are fucking cut.
Well, if Mario loses enough races, they're gonna stop calling it Mario Kart, and God forbid it becomes something like a Wario Kart. It's like when you lose in Mario Party to Wario, and then you gotta see his dirty fucking mug show up on the title screen. No fucking way. No fucking way.
So help me Christ, if this thing's ever called Toad Kart or Toadette Kart.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sexist or anything like that. It's just it's a toad. Come on, let's be honest. They're not real people.
So like, it is kind of weird because this game is like the introduction to Wario, and he is more like kind of a scheming. It's kind of interesting because like this is also, it's not the first game that introduced another villain, but it was like the first time a villain would go forward, and it was kind of like, I remember I was at that point where like, because other kids, there's Mario Land 3, which had which was Wario Land, and I didn't play it because it was Wario, and I was like, fuck Wario, why do I want to play this fucking Wario? Because I'm not gonna lie, I was one of those kids who the idea of playing as the bad guy or the anti-hero didn't really interest me. Like, I would be like, well, why am I turning my back on my boy? Plus at the time, you couldn't really. You were kind of like, a game was like a birthday present or a Christmas present, and you got maybe one a year. So you wouldn't want to roll the dice on a game where you're playing as someone you didn't fucking like. And also at the same time, it's also like, so there's a little bit more sparing, where by the time I got to like, say Sonic Adventure 2, I was a little bit more able to separate it as a mechanic as opposed to like, no, I'm actually killing Sonic, So, but at that time though, I was like, no. Like, I would never play as Bowser. I would never play as Koopa back in like Mario Kart. But as time went on, I got, you get varied. It's not all black and white. But at the time I was like, I'm never going to play Wario Land. Now, Wario is one of my favorite characters, but just like you said, 'cause he's more or less like the Lobo on PCP of Nintendo,
Yeah, it's the same way I feel too, because I like Wario a lot nowadays, and I totally can respect that character and so on. And I mean, I did play Mario Land 3 back in the day. I remember that threw me off because that was the first thing I was like, because I like one of those ones I was looking, I was like, wait a second, is this what Mario looks like now? Like, because I just didn't put 2 and 2 together until you kind of got farther into it. You're like, oh no, you're playing as Wario? Like, oh Jesus, like it's like, what happened to him here? You know what I mean? And the weird thing is you think about it, you're like, Wario gets his own game technically before there's a Super Luigi Land. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I guess you get Mario's missing and so on like that, but
Luigi's still name is in the title. It's still Mario's missing, so I guess we gotta deal with this fucking dipshit.
Luigi's the one who generally gets the fucking shaft more than anybody else. You know what I mean? For a guy who everybody knows him, everybody likes Luigi and something like that, but nobody wants to do business with him for some reason.
Yeah, no, he is kind of like the tag along, but at the same time, and they had that. They tried with there's Luigi's Mansion. They tried. There's a year Luigi, but aside from that, though, with this game, going back to it, because it is interesting, because something about it is like, yeah, sure, yeah, you still have Koopa Troopas, and you still have like, you could do things you couldn't do in previous Mario, like Mario Land. Like, for instance, this one you can actually carry shells. Now, it's not as like, he doesn't actually hold them like he would in other games, but it's over his head. But the fact you can do that, where you couldn't do that in like Mario Land 1. And then he also, they had like the spinny thing where you could break bricks from Mario World. And then you also like, yeah. And then there's some of the going back to like some of like what I mean by the aesthetic. So usually there's a very particular Mario aesthetic, and I know by certain games, okay, this one has a little bit of a space aesthetic, but it still looks like Mario. This one looks like a dinosaur aesthetic, but it's still Mario. This has really, I mean, I guess you could call some of it Mario aesthetic, but I guess the 8-bitness you kind of leaves a little bit to the imagination, and a lot of it looks more of just kind of like, I'm not saying, I don't mean this in a bad way. I just mean this kind of like what a lot of other like platformers were trying to do, trying to like make like a Mario killer or a Mario rival, but it just happens to have Mario in it. So just some of the worlds were played like Mario's in like a world where, yeah, we had Giant World in Mario Land, but this one is just like, no, it's like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and you're just working your way through a house, and everything's like big and you're small. Or then there's like, oh, Mario's going up a giant tree. Like, oh, that sounds like it could be a Mario level. Like he's just in this giant tree, he's working his way around. But then it's just like, it's kind of another Honey, I Shrunk the Kids kind of thing. You're just going up a giant ass tree. And then there's one where it's all like haunted, like, oh, look, there's Jason Goombas.
Yeah, but that's, I mean, you get a lot of these cool characters in it. Like there's like the Jason Goombas in there. They got those like the pig cannon things or whatever. Then just, I think that's almost kind of the neat thing is like they could have just created just the same old stuff from Mario Brothers 3 and World and just threw it into Game Boy versions. But the fact that there's a bunch of brand new characters, which one of the things is like, as a Mario fan, I wish you would see more of this like in later day. Like, why isn't any of these characters ever like appearing in Mario Kart or Mario Party? They could literally be background characters. They don't got to be like a playable character or something like that. But there's so much like excess Mario stuff. It's the same thing with like Mario Brothers 2, like the American version. It's like a lot of those characters other than Shy Guys, which is, it's actually kind of surprising that Shy Guys are even used. But yeah, Alberto, I guess. Yeah, they did use that, but there's so much stuff in there too that's never used. Like, why doesn't Wart ever come back? Like, why don't you battle him one time? And you're always battling Bowser. It's got that kind of thing where like there's a bunch of stuff that is built up in Mario lore from like the early days that could be used.
I might be not. I mean, I'm not correcting like, oh, actually, but I still need to play the game, so I don't know. But in one of the Mario and Luigi RPG games, apparently there's one that's all you go to a dream world and you actually fight Wart. And I'm not sure if he's the boss or a boss. I heard that. Yeah. I don't know if that's true though. But I could see that franchise doing something like that.
Yeah, because the RPG, it's the same thing kind of like Mario RPG is, because a lot of those characters haven't never carried on to anything else. And I mean, that's the place you would put them if anything like that. And sadly, I've never ever played any of the Mario and Luigi ones. And it's one of those series. It's like, it always looked cool, always looked like I should play it. But you know how a lot of times it is. You just, you get around to some things and you don't get around to all things. But I think we might give one of them a go in the near future.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, we'll see where we're at. But that's the plan. But a plan, not the plan, but a plan. But going through this game has like, it is a very easy game. It is just a very easy pick up and play type of game. And it is just kind of like, it does bring back, this does seem like a game that you would actually probably play on the way to like an aunt or grandma's house you live far away from. I was, even though I didn't have it till like later near the end of like the Game Boy's life cycle. And because this is the game I would play at a friend's house or play on the playground with someone else's Game Boy. But it was a game I didn't get till later because I really Pokemon as a lot of people know, rejuvenated Game Boy's life cycle, and that's where I'm like, well, let me go get this. And, it did kind of like it did bring back memories of like playing it on the way to like a relative who lived far away. I don't have that particular memory like this exactly, but just gave me that vibe, that kind of game you would play.
Yeah, 100%. That's like the same memory I kind of have. As I said, it ties with a handful of Game Boy games because once again, I didn't get a Game Boy till much later in life. But I played them at other people's houses. I was just like, that sounds like the most poorest kid thing. I didn't have any of these things when I went over to the other people's houses. They had those. They had the Game Boys and they had Sega CDs and they had Atari computers. It was like it was in the future. I went back home and played with sticks and stones and imagined I was playing a Game Boy.
I drew Mario in the dirt before an old man with a monocle and a cane walked by and said, "Move away, peasant boy," and kicked the dirt away.
Well, you see, we couldn't afford paper and pen then, but and dirt was apparently owned by somebody else.
That's my dirt. That's my dirt, you see. He's pointing at you. That'd be 1 shilling for that dirt and the stick.
I own all of nature. Nature is mine to control.
So yeah, that because those type of situations, I didn't actually get a Game Boy till like probably like the 6th grade, give or take. So by then, this game had already been out for a while. Yeah. I think it does have like as far as like Mario-ish designs, like a lot of the villains just kind of look like weird, just things you'd see in a video game platform. I mean, you have Koopas and whatnot, but I think the bosses are where you kind of have some of the that looks like a Mario, like almost kind of like Mario bosses you'd fight in later Mario games, like the three pig head things, like those look like bosses you'd fight like in Mario Odyssey or Mario Sunshine.
And that boss is kind of a little bit more of a challenging one because you got to hit, like, the normal Mario bosses, 3 jumps to the head, boom, they're dead. But like when you get that 3 pig one, it's like, oh, you got to go through 3 of these guys, and each one of them takes 3 hits. You know what I mean? So it's like you got to be kind of prepared for that,
And there's the octopus thing, which that looks kind of like it could be anything. The witch almost feels like the witch was just sort of feels kind of. I guess it's weird because usually you're not used to it being kind of like. I mean, I guess you had the Koopalings, but at the same time, they were always Koopas, or they had 1 of 2 or 3 different styles to fight. These guys all did something a little different. Like the witch almost looks like kind of like a villain from like from another franchise, really.
Yeah, it almost could be kind of like that and so on. Yet it still all does feel Mario. I think it's just that one where it's just there's so much new in this one game that does kind of make it stand out so much.
Mm-hmm. Or there's even like even like say even say like the sewer rat thing. That thing looks like it could fit in Mario. Tatanga, that's the main boss from the first Mario game, the first Mario Land. I mean.
Yeah. So they got that kind of carries over in there too.
What a demotion! You were running shit the last time. This time you're working for Wario.
Yeah, exactly. Of all people at this time, So there's all that, and it's one of those ones though, like something that's just, I think, the thing that's kind of hard to explain to someone almost nowadays is just like when you kind of got this game, the way that it played and the way that everything moved in it and how fluid it sort of felt. Because I'll say like Mario Land 1, nostalgic as fuck for me. Don't get me wrong. Love that song. I think it's got one of the coolest Mario songs in any games. But it's like that one almost is like very like, it almost feels like if that was like the 1982 version of like Mario Brother, Super Mario Brothers, where this one here, it's just like, the way that it played and the way that everything felt and moved and everything like that, it was like almost just felt like, man, this is a humongous step in Game Boy development.
Yeah, and plus it just, I guess the variety. I mean, at the end of the day, you're just jumping all their heads. But even this one, I think, had more of a variety of characters than previous Mario games did. At least it felt like it, Even if it was just kind of like, okay, the Goombas have knives in their faces now, an adjacent mask. Or if it's something to the degree of like, even like, I think some of my favorite villains are actually some of the tree world, because that's where you came across ants that would suddenly like you had to kind of think about how you're going to attack them, because they had timing where they would have spikes going up on them. And then they also had like ones that like shot guns at you. And then you also had the flies that actually anticipated where you're going to jump and try to just stay away from you, which was at the time different for like a Mario game.
Yeah, no. It's like all those little things like that. They're super cool. I also love how it throws in like you literally have a counter at the bottom of like your pretty much murder sheet of how many things you've killed along your journey. And of course, every time you hit 100, it gives you like a star so you can murder some more. But I just love like that's not in any other Mario game where it's just like, hey Luigi, check out my kill list. Just got back from Nam.
Look at my necklace of ears.
Look at they're gonna spray
He's
paint
just,
all
like,
these like
looking
bombs on my airplane that when I fly back to my island to show how many cities I've blown up.
Here's what I like. I like the idea that like he goes back. He says like, you know, can you believe this shit, Luigi? The fucking Wario hypnotized one into not liking me. He hypnotized them. Yeah, he fucking hypnotized them, you fucking idiot. Why don't you get about that? What's that so fucking hard to understand? Right, he hypnotized them. Okay, and then like after he gets it back, and he's all like, you know what? He's just like looking around. So you all thought you could run this place without me. You know, just fucking. I guess there's a fucking message I gotta send.
You know, I mean,
so this shit doesn't happen again.
You know what? That Mario statue over there that you call a toy, erect it bigger. I want it. Every place in this island shall be shadowed by that Mario statue.
It's just him like with his hands on his hips looking down.
It's one of those statues too that no matter what part of the island you're at, it's always looking at you.
Yeah. Like you can just open your minds and it's just kind of like looking at you over its shoulder somehow. Like, oh shit.
Like, I was just kind of wondering.
I like the idea that like once he gets his. Oh, you go ahead.
Oh no, you go first.
I just like the idea like once he gets this thing back, he's like, you know what? I don't fucking want it. And just carpet bombs it and leaves.
Gets back in his plane. You know what? It's better I take care of it than somebody else.
I just like some cartel type move. Like he kills the other cartel, then he takes it out on the rest of the fucking town. You know, it's like, oh, so I see where your true loyalty really lies. Like, no, he made us do it. He made us do it.
Oh. Yeah, because when Mario never returns back to what's it called, like Sahara Land or something like that.
No, and then like that's where he finds out his brother's dating this girl named Daisy. He's like, oh shit, and you know, just sees her.
He's like, oh. Just that one, like, okay, that's why I feel like Mario shows up to like tennis one day, and it's just like, oh shit, like he's trying to hide his face, like, who fucking invited her? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, we banged that one time. I fucking flew in a plane, rescued her town and whatnot like that. You know, but you know, shit, you know, like I can't bring back another girl back to. I'm not Mormon, you know, I can't just be having all these girls, Pauline, fucking Peach, you know, Daisy, all this stuff. I mean, you know, I'm a blue collar man. You got to stick with one. You know, that's what Mom always said. You know, he's there at tennis, and he's like, Luigi, who the fuck can find this? He's like, hey, Luigi, Mario's my new girlfriend. You know, I thought you could come play too. Luigi, don't you, Luigi? There's 1,000 fucking fish in the sea. How the hell did you find her?
I just like the idea that like he was just kind of like, what happens in Sahara Land stays in Sahara Land. What can I say? I got a thing for Middle Eastern girls, you know, and then like
they look like they come from Ireland.
Yeah, I don't know how it works. Mushroom Kingdom's fucked up. and then Luigi, like she's with Luigi only because like, well, he's the closest thing to Mario, so he's like, oh Jesus Christ, we gotta play Daisy for me situation.
Yeah, it's totally that. She's been there ever since. You know what? I thought one day she would just leave, but you know how Luigi is. Once he gets attached, you know, that's it. You know, one time he got a dog. The dog died, and the dog was still there in the house for 10 years later. You know what I mean? I told him, you got to clean up that mummy at some point? But he's still my friend, Mario. Oh, yeah, Jesus fucking Christ. You know, so I got taxes there from him. I'm a nice fucking guy.
I charged him for it, of course.
Oh yeah, I don't. You know, as a plumber, you never do something for free. That goes with everything in life. Everything is worth your time. That's your money.
I just like the idea that he decided to take that after, like, you know, in a moment of, and like he just let Wario come back in. Like the AA meetings weren't working out, so he's just like, "Oh yeah, I got a couch you can crash on." Like, you have a castle, you don't have like a spare bedroom. I have a couch. Be grateful.
And it's in my front yard. I mean, at some point the trash man's gonna come by and take it, but till then you can use it.
Exactly. I like the idea of that. Like he let him in, like, you know, just this guy. He's like, oh, he's that kid who's always always at the lunch table playing Magic cards. That fucking loser, you know. and
he played it by himself. He didn't even have friends to play Magic with. That's how much of a loser he was. He's playing the solitaire version of Magic.
And when Mario isn't looking, he goes and does like some fucking Hamlet shit to him, you know, and, like, only like, you know, the hypnosis equivalent, and boots him out of his own fucking place.
And then it's just somehow, some way, after really all this bullying from Mario, let's be honest, that turns Wario into the man he becomes. He becomes like a pirate because of all this.
And then Mario's just like, okay, what can I do to get this shit? Like, okay, Fire Flower gives me like an Indian war feather. That's kind of badass. And this is like carrots. Oh, those are healthy. Fucking rabbit. What's this bullshit?
I gotta go flying around in my little, like, I'm not gonna call them what they are, but we all know what they are ears.
Well, it's kind of interesting because every game, when you think about it, like from Mario 3 and on, there always is like a power-up that helps you like fly or hover or give you some kind of aerial advantage. And in this one, it's it's a pair of rabbit ears, which we never see again. We never really see like a callback to rabbit ears. We see callbacks all the time to the Tanuki ears. We see callbacks all the time. Not all the time, but sometimes to like the yellow cape. But we never see callbacks to the rabbit ears.
No, that one's such a lost in time. I mean, realistically, to be honest, the Tanuki one was a lost in time one for so long too. It took like 15 years for like the Tanuki to like reappear, like when Mario 3D Land came out on the DS.
Yeah, but then I started seeing a lot of Tanuki merchandise pop up, whether he be in the suit or just the ears and the tail. I actually prefer just the ears and the tail, in all honesty. Yeah. But so much so, I'm not sure if you can see it in there. Well, I don't think the camera's showing it, but I got a figure of it in there. I think I would like to see more cape, like Mario with a cape type stuff, because that's probably my favorite Mario World Mario.
Yeah, well, I wish more of the power-up stuff would kind of return, because that's like so many games. Like, there's always just these cool power-ups, and they're almost landlocked to one game. I mean, beyond the Fire Flower and the Mushroom and, you know, things like that, like, it always switches out. I mean, even like you take like Mario 3, for example, like what we never get to see the boot again, really, you know. We don't get to see
fucking boot. Oh, you see a variation of it in Bowser's Fury. He's in like an ice skate.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you get like the ice. So yeah, you get like variations of it and so on. And, you know, and there's always a new kind of neat power up that kind of appears as time goes on. You know, and then you get the weird things like the cat suit, which is one of those ones where it's like, if you thought just the standard Tanuki suit was a little bit odd, and then you see the cat suit, and even though it's very practical, but it is that one where you're like, huh, that's a weird one that I never expected to see. A blue collar man running around on all fours and a cat suit. Yeah.
It's kind of weird. Like every so often, I'll just see certain things. Like I'll see Mario with the Tanuki ears and tail, and be like, yeah, I get it. Cool, you know. And then I see like the Bumblebee outfit. I'm like, what's really going on here? You know? And then it's one of those things. Like it's just as weird. It's just as kiddish. But at the same time, I guess there's that thing like, well, I grew up with this, so therefore it's legitimized. But then all of a sudden, like, you know, you're like, come on, I love Galaxy. But when you see him in that like little Bumblebee outfit for the first time, like, what the fuck's going on here?
It's just like Nintendo's like, you know what? Sega's getting all the furry audience, so we got to get a little bit of that back.
Yeah.
Just one of those ones.
Or even
wait,
Tanuki suit.
you want to get that back? I thought it was good that Sega took that audience away from us.
They got wallets too.
I
Eager
don't
to
care
spend them on very particular things.
who cares what they look like on the outside? It's all about the green on the inside of their wallets. That's the only color I see.
More or less. We're all the same at the end of the day. We just need that green.
We need that green. Or I guess if you're in other countries like Brazil, I'll take that pink and purple.
I was gonna say it was kind of playing this game because some year, like I think the first year we were doing Mario May, this year being Mario March. Mario May, we covered the Super Mario Adventures manga comic that appeared in Nintendo Power, and the last little mini issue was a thing sponsoring Mario World, Mario Land 2.
Yeah, it was like the prequel,
And
wasn't it?
After playing the game, what?
It wasn't it like a prequel to the game?
I guess it could have been, but I kind of scammed to the end of the book here after playing the game, and just kind of relooked at it. And it's basically Mario gets like a note to like from Wario to say, "Hey, let's go hang out. It's been years since we hung out in their schoolyard," and that's where Wario's like, "Oh yeah, sure. It's been a long time since we did that, you know." And then like Wario's is like, when he really gets here, I'm gonna beat the shit out of him because we always play sheriff and he always kicked the shit out of me. And he never let me be sheriff. Only one time he let me be sheriff, and there's something else, something like that it didn't happen or whatever. Like he let me be sheriff one more time, and he made fun of me about it. And then Mario's like, "Okay," and on his way over, he fights like 4 of the 5 bosses, like 5 of the 6 bosses or something. On the way over, like he fights the sewer rat thing very easily. He fights the 3 pig things, knocks them out. He comes across like almost back to back to back. He comes across the witch, and he just trying to avoid getting killed by the witch. The witch just shoots the bird who just happens to be flying by. You know? He doesn't face off against the alien thing, and that's where he then he comes across the octopus and offers to help the octopus, but then like the octopus is like, "Oh, I'm sad. I need salt water. I'm in fresh water." He's like, "Okay, well here, I got something for you." He pours it in, like, "Oh, that's sugar," and the octopus just pulls over and dies. And we're like, "Anyway," it just keeps walking. And then,
it's all
and
white.
Then he gets exactly. It's either that or cocaine, you know. And then he gets to Wario, and that's where he has a big battle with Wario. And Wario he ends up like deflating him. Like I think he has like a little thing that made him big. He like deflates it, he goes small. And he says like, "I'm really just kind of sad, Mario. We'd always play like robbers and sheriff, and only gotta be sheriff once." And Mario's like, "Well, you know, don't be a puss about it." You know, it's literally like, so what? Don't be a fucking pussy. Let's play now. Okay. And he's like beating him again. And Warren's like running away crying. So it is like, hey kids, be a bully. It's fine. As long as you're cooler than them, it all justifies.
Well, that's like totally 90s logic, though. Like, it's like, no. It's like same thing with like the 80s. Like, no, you gotta be fucking the coolest person in class. Like, God forbid you become some fucking loser, you know? So stand up, kids. You know what? When you get a choice to be sheriff, you put on that riot gear and you teach them like the dirty hippies they are. You beat the love out of them. You know, oh, believe me, that love can't last forever to a good baton whacking.
Just like, you know how the cool kid in the movies always just says nothing, arms crossed? The reason is he knows he's one comment away from looking like a dumbass and having everyone in that room turn on him. So that's the reason why he says like, "Billy, what's the answer to question 390B?" He's just like, "Fuck you." "Oh, Billy said that shit. Oh, Billy's such a badass." Well, it's because if he really said, he's like, "Virginia?" "Oh, you fucking dipshit, Billy." That's why, kids. It's that flimsy of a margin. It could flip.
That's why you got to make sure you got to make sure you get them, and you hold them down, and you're the tough one. You know what I mean? Because everything's a battle. It's 1992 right now, and everything is a war. Not a Wario. Keep that fucking in mind, though.
When was Mario Land 2?
I think it was I think it's 92 for Japan. Yeah, no, it's 92 for America too. It's 93 if you're in
I remember
Europe and not England.
92. It doesn't seem like. God, I guess that makes sense. But it just feels like it came out later than that. Like not that it was a game. I mean, I remember playing it like in the schoolyard, but yeah, it just feels like a game that probably came out like more closer to like I don't know, like 96 or something. But then again, it came out before Mario 64, so.
Yeah, exactly. Because gosh, I think Super Mario Land 3 is like 94, which is kind of weird to think that's the first Wario one and so on. Yeah, it's bizarre. It's that funny because the Game Boy is probably like the console that has the longest lifespan out of like generally any system. Because it literally I think goes from 89 to 2001.
Well, once again, like I think Pokemon gave it a lot more longevity. Because they were just about to ready because he was getting the guy was getting shit for like, you're still making your game. You realize that the Game Boy's dying hardware, right? You're still going through with it, So those are those few situations where it totally worked in his favor. But
it's like that one be like, dude, you should have just made it for Virtual Boy. You know that's the future of the Game Boy, right? No, I think I'm going to stick with the Game Boy.
It, like, we'd be seeing it on these weird like video game channel. Like it would be like one of those things you're in Smash Brothers and you're looking at trophies. Like, what the fuck is this thing? Apparently, there's 150 of these fucking things, and it was some shit for the Virtua Boy,
Yeah, exactly. Actually, that sounds almost kind of cool. Just that. I wish there was almost like just weird like ports of like Game Boy games to Virtual Boy, just for no reason at all. Just to have them.
That would be interesting just to see like I know they're out there. I mean, I've seen like I haven't seen them playable, but I mean I've seen like footage of what this Virtual Boy game really was at the end of the day. And red and black, it's got to be a weird color scheme to be stared at constantly. But I guess that was all futuristic at the time. They're I mean, they had a Star Fox game on there, and I think they had like a Mario
it's not
Game
Star
Gallery
Fox
kind of game.
Necessarily, it's something. It's like a Star Fox game. I mean, the thing is like Virtual Boy game. No, it's like a Star Fox game. Like the biggest thing they have on there's the Wario Land. It's like literally a full-on Wario Land game that's on there. That's pretty neat. And then of course they got like the Super Mario Brothers, the Super Mario, not Super Mario, regular Mario Brothers, like kind of like the deluxe Virtual Boy version. There's only like 36 games or something like that for Virtual Boy, and they're all kind of neat, like in their novelty way.
That's just so it's only 36. I mean, when I think Virtual Boy, I assume they only have like 10 or 11, but 36, you could do some. Yeah. I'm also thinking like just like I'm just imagining like the Virtual Boy. I mean, there's already been movies where like someone's doing virtual reality and then like the killer comes up behind him and knifes him. But Virtual Boy seems like something like parents be worried about, like a kid trying to take a Virtual Boy, because that's the thing with a Game Boy. You can take a Game Boy with you anywhere. Like a Virtual Boy, you got to take that thing on a little tripod, plop it down. Can you imagine playing that on a playground? You're playing that, and some asshole like just kicks a soccer ball at your fucking face,
or just fucking
knocks it over into a puddle.
Just kicks the Virtual Boy like it's a fucking football.
Yeah. Oh, that would have happened. Man, chances are, if anybody brought it to them in the playground, that would have happened.
Yeah, I hate to start saying it, but that would be asking for trouble. And that there was, I hate to sort of say it, but I bet you anything in America that happened at least a handful of times.
The kid brought Virtual Boy to show and tell.
Yeah, it just didn't work out. It's one of those because I've just seen the shit that people do. Well, I just think of the stuff that people would do to other people in their Game Boys. Like one of the dickish things that I've ever seen people do is where they'd rip the cartridge out of the Game Boy while it was on.
I saw the aftermath of that one time. One kid was doing that, and it was a kid named Travis. Of course, it's a kid named Travis, and he was like, he said like, who he called, pulled the game out, called him a name, and my friend just looked at him, and he happened to have his like metal lunchbox. Like it wasn't like a little plastic lunchbox with like cartoon characters on it. It was like a metal lunchbox from like the 50s. He grabbed it, smacked him in the side of the fucking head with it. So like, and then like even the yard duties are like, I saw what happened, and the yard dude's kind of younger. He's like, warning to you, Travis, don't do it again. It's like, that's it. He hit me with the lunchbox. Like, he pulled his game out.
Yeah.
It was like it was like one of those cool substitute teacher, not substitute teacher. Like I guess in hindsight, he was probably a college student that was trying to fill some kind of credential of some kind to get his degree. I'm guessing it was something like that in hindsight, and he was probably like 20 or something. So he's all like, I get the kids. I understand the youth.
Yeah, one of those ones there. Well, because I feel like if you don't touch another man or woman's Game Boy, that's like messing with another man or woman's car. You know what I mean? There's just certain things you don't do.
Yeah, and I actually think that game he was playing was Mario Land 2, actually. And I think it was right like on Wario's Castle. And something about that is this game is easy, but then when you get to Wario's Castle, there is like those couple of Indiana Jones parts where I'm like, I'm glad this game has save states, because when you go and you step on that one tile and the thing just, I'm like, oh, that's right. This thing would always fucking get me whenever I played as a kid. But now I have save states. So here we go.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing. It's like when you're playing on an original Game Boy, it is definitely a little bit more tough than playing it on, the Switch version and so on. And I even contemplated, because I actually have that Super Mario Land DX version of it on literally on a Game Boy cartridge. The one where I was a handful of years ago, a fan kind of hacked it and put it together so it's actually in full color, kind of the equivalent of like the Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening DX one. So it looks really nice.
Oh, cool.
But I was like, it's right here on my Switch. I guess I'll just go old school and play it this way,
Yeah, sometimes there's some of the things about, because you could change the coloring. Do you want to be standard Game Boy Pocket, or Game Boy Color? I'm like, you know what? I know I probably would have been happy to have color as a kid, but I actually went to Game Boy Pocket. I just like the look of it a little bit more. It's not as grainy as Game Boy, but it's still, I don't know, still return a little bit of that nostalgia feeling in color. It just seems like at the time it was really happy to have it in color, but really it also just looks a little bit more of like, not enough to make it look better, like where the other one actually I thought looked pretty good, Game Boy, for what it was,
Yeah, well, I'm very nostalgic for Game Boy Pocket, because that was like the original Game Boy that I ever had. So I put a lot of time into utilizing the Game Boy Pocket, and just the crystal clear screen on that one was always so nice too. And you could dial in the contrast, so it's one of those ones. The one thing I wish they had on it sounds like such a weird one, but I wish there was a third or a fourth mode that they had on that screen thing on the Switch. I wish they had the Super Game Boy version, because a lot of the games on Super Game Boy have their own kind of sides and borders to them and so on like that. And sometimes they actually have even other kind of colors and so on.
That'd be cool. I remember having basically the Super Game Boy attachment for the GameCube.
Yeah, that one's a little bit different. I don't know if that carried over I have one of those too. I don't remember if that one carried over the same like Super Game Boy stuff when you played older Game Boy games on it. Because I just remember just only playing generally Game Boy Advance games on that version. But yeah, I wish it had that. I mean, that's just asking for one more thing, but that would have been kind of cool to have. I know like certain games like the Donkey Kong, like the old school Donkey Kong game that came out for Game Boy that had just like 100 and something plus levels. Like that one had a bunch of stuff that like if you had the Super Game Boy, it enhanced it even more. So I assume that game will probably be on the list to come down this Game Boy pipeline at some point.
Well, I feel like I think it'd be a huge, because that one Mario could actually do a couple like little gymnastic tricks, and that was even before Mario 64, I believe. So, like you could actually skip pillars and beams because you could do a little handstand and then flip up and jump past it, or some parts of it at least, something to that effect. So,
Yeah.
Amber, once you beat regular Donkey Kong, you could from there go on. There's like these themed worlds of Mario still tracking Donkey Kong down, like this whole expanded game. So, yeah, I hope they bring that version of Donkey Kong in. That'd be pretty awesome.
Yeah, because that's a really cool one. I mean, I just look forward to all this stuff because they have a bunch of other games that they announced. Because I thought all these games are coming out at first, but then it's like, oh no, they only released like a quarter of what they said. Because there was a bunch of other games that were kind of in that thing where I was like, shit, Pokemon trading card game, you know? And God, there's that one Game Boy Golden Sun. I'm like, God, I haven't played that forever. I'm like, that'd be kind of sweet. So there's all kinds of good stuff coming out down literally the pipeline of Nintendo stuff for here. And going back, playing through Super Mario Land, I think that's the perfect way to start off a Mario March. You know, this game is so nostalgic to me and always takes me back.
Yeah, I'm glad we did this one. I'm glad, looking forward to other Mario stuff we're going to do for this month.
So, yeah, but other than all that good stuff, go to oldmanorange.com, find more Pizza Boys comics, all our podcasts, old animations and videos and all that fun stuff. But till then, I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Tunney.
And we'll see you some other time.
Later, folks.